Does the job for China Mobile. The world's biggest wireless operator maintains its lead over rivals. It roped in new customers for a fourth month on cheaper phone charges. Joining us for some more perspective in the industry in the coming year is Duncan. He's chairman at BDA China, a technology research company based in Beijing. Duncan, it's good to have you with us. It looks like China Mobile's aggressive push outside the first-tier cities is paying off.
Absolutely. I mean, the penetration in rural markets is still only around 20%. Versus the national, 40% plus average. So there's a lot of growth still coming in rural markets here.
So do you think China Mobile can maintain its lead in the coming year, or do you think China Telecom or Unicom could narrow that gain?
Well, China Unicom is sort of paralyzed by the lack of movement in China on 3G. First, we need to figure out when China will push 3G licenses out, which is really dependent on when TD-SCDMA, the Chinese technology, is ready, if ever. And I'm pretty skeptical about that. So in the meantime, China Unicom it has its networks, GSM and CDMA networks, but it doesn't know its future. It may be broken up. And market entrants like China Netcom or China Telecom are very eager to get into the mobile business, but they can't do it without a license. So China Mobile is in a great situation right now.
Yeah, the homegrown 3G standard, the one you mentioned, the TD-SCDMA, I mean, what are the pros and cons for that?
I'm not sure about the pros. I have a piece out in this month's Far Eastern Economic Review about the cons. There's a bunch of them. It doesn't really benefit China Mobile, certainly. They'd rather not have it. They'd rather have a established technology, particularly WCDMA, which is now the global leader by far in 3G. The equipment vendors of Huawei ZT are doing actually okay as it is in 2G, getting more contracts, and will do well even in WCDMA, even in China if it's deployed. And they're doing well internationally. Over 65% of Huawei's revenues are outside China. And consumers just want, cool handsets and a choice of handsets. And TD, we still don't see the handsets. Yesterday, China Mobile announced a procurement of only 30,000 handsets. But, this is under cloaked secrecy. You're not even allowed to see or divulge what the handsets look like to others. I mean, this is crazy. You can't actually launch a technology under a cloak like this.
So anything but the TD-SCDMA, WCDMA, in time for the Beijing Olympics, is that the best option here?
Well, unfortunately, I mean, it doesn't look like China will have any kind of workable 3G by the Olympics. We have, 200 and something days to go. Visitors coming from overseas who are increasingly experiencing 5, 10, 20 megabits per second on their phones or data cards on HSPA, the new 3G from WCDMA, will drop down to edge when they arrive in China, unless, they're given TD-SCDMA handsets. And even if they are, we don't think the speeds are going to be more than maybe 1 meg or something by then. They're behind. So TD is not going to be in good shape for the Olympics.
Okay, so China Mobile will continue its gains, but for how long? And how much longer can it keep price cutting? Do you think it'll continue to cut prices next year?
Well, it's not necessarily all about cutting prices. It's basically about more aggressive promotions and the acquisition costs for consumers in rural areas. I'm not sure you've been to villages in China, but they have sort of speakers that blare out information. I mean, China Mobile can get in there and market very effectively, doing a great job at getting into these, what they call administrative villages, and actually all villages in China by 2010 will have service, and they have very aggressive marketing campaigns. So, and margins can be good in some of these areas, and we see in some cases higher than in urban areas. In some cases, they're hard to reach with a lot of network expense, but they're cutting their capex through interesting solutions there, and over-the-air prepaid top-ups and things like that. So China Mobile is innovating in a way which it's going to make it very difficult for new entrants to make a dent anytime soon, and we don't see new competition coming for at least a year.
Yeah, and China Mobile is now in talks with Apple on bringing the iPhone there in China. Could this be the next big thing for China Mobile?
I think they're not actually in talks. I mean, they've been approached by Apple, and there was some confusion at a conference last month in Macau that I attended where they said, well, we talk to everybody, but the message from China Mobile was, we are not really interested in the business model of the iPhone. The iPhone is quite impertinent in the sense that Apple is coming in and saying, we want some of the revenues on value-added services for the sales of our devices. That's what they've done in the US with AT&T. China Mobile already has 25% plus of its revenues from data services. They don't really feel inclined to share any of that right now, or the need to do anything different right now with Apple. There are a lot of iPhones in the market, though, right now, whether they're real phones or what we call Frankenphones, where they're sort of an Apple outside and God knows what's inside. There are a lot on the market, and some are coming through gray channels, so real phones smuggled in. So there are iPhones already on the streets of Beijing, and there are people who drop them off at your house for 4,300 kuai apparently. But
I know we got about a minute here. Have you had a chance to see the knockoff of the iPhone there?
I've seen the real ones. Apparently the knockoffs look pretty good. I wouldn't want to open them up, but to be honest, there seems to be enough of these smuggled ones coming in. It's estimated about 17% of iPhones globally are being sold to great channels which end up in markets like China. You know, these are people who signed up in the AT&T in the U.S. on a contract and ship them over here. So I think there's enough of the real ones actually out there before you have to have the fake one to show your friends in the karaoke.
Yeah, you got to tell the difference. Thank you so much for joining us, Duncan. Do appreciate it. Duncan Clark of BDA China in Beijing.